Good morning, everybody. Thanks very much for joining the webinar this morning. My name is Jill Davis and I'm the Managing Director of SLC Representation. I'm here today to tell you all about the amazing Central Coast in California as part of our SLC Connect webinar series. This is week 6, and every Wednesday at 11 a.m. we're bringing you one of our clients' destinations or brands. Just a little bit of housekeeping to start off with. Please do keep your microphones on mute throughout, but if you do have any questions, there's a question and answer box that you can use inside Zoom. So please do post all your questions there, and I will look forward to answering those at the end of the presentation. There's also a chat box on there as well, so please do post where you're dialing in from. Tell us a little bit about your own Californian experiences, where you've been, what you love about California, what you'd like to do next. We'd really love to see the chat being used, so please do post any of your chats there as well. I'm going to give about a 20-minute presentation, taking us on a little road trip from north to south. And then at the end of that, I'm going to be joined by our panelist today, Keith Marsh. Delighted he's joining us from THL. He's going to give his insights into taking an RV down this spectacular coastline and give us a bit of insight into the best ways to travel. Morning, Chrissy. I can see you've dialed in from Blackheath. Great to have you with us, and I know you've joined many of our webinars, so it's great to see you here again this morning. So without further ado, I'm going to launch the presentation now. So, Central Coast, California. Obviously, California itself needs no introduction. I'm sure everybody who's joining us here today has had some experience of California, either having sold it. Most likely you've heard of San Francisco and LA, the major gateways and your access points into this region. Of course, some famous national parks inland as well, including Yosemite, Kings Canyon and Death Valley. Approximately 3.5 million Brits go to the US every year, and about 650,000 of those come to California. They're spending about $1.4 billion in the California region, and it's the 3rd most visited state behind just Florida and New York, both of whom see over 1 million Brits visiting each year. But we're here today to talk very specifically about the Central Coast region, which was described to me as pretty much everything between Los Angeles and San Francisco along that coast. This really is probably one of the most iconic driving routes in, well, probably the world, certainly in the US. 350 miles of amazing coastline, and the Pacific Highway 1 runs straight along that Pacific Gateway, as you see here on the top left. And expect amazing Pacific sunsets. It's home to national and state parks, world-class wineries, and some really world-class culinary experiences as well. Incredible nature, dramatic cliffs, pristine white sand beaches, redwood forests, and of course classic beach towns as well. So my aim in this webinar is to just give you a flavour of the diverse experiences that your guests are going to be able to enjoy along this area of absolute outstanding beauty along the Californian coast. So if you're anything like me, you want a map and you want to know how this all fits together in practice. So the coastline is split into 4 quite distinct regions: Monterey Bay region, San Luis Obispo, Santa Barbara, and Ventura. And this morning I'm going to follow a route south from just south of San Francisco, starting in Santa Cruz. So we're going to head to the beaches of Santa Cruz for some surfing, then hop over to Gilroy and find out why this inland town has really put itself on the map. We're going to head to the ever popular Monterey Bay area, heading down Highway 1 to Big Sur. We're going to spot some zebras in San Simeon. We're going to take in the Field of Lights at Paso Robles. Heading to San Luis Obispo, we'll find out why Oprah Winfrey said this was the happiest place in the US. And then heading down to the beach towns of Ventura, Oxnard, and the Channel Islands National Park. So first of all, with Santa Cruz. Santa Cruz is only 1 hour and 15 minutes south of San Francisco International Airport. So if you've got people who are coming to Central Coast, they've been to San Francisco before and they actually want to head straight to the coast, it's very, very easy to do. It's certainly the home of surfing, and this is one of the famous surf points at Steamer Lane. It's probably the birthplace of mainland surfing in the US. In 1885, some Hawaiian royalty visited the area and rode waves on surfboard made from the redwood trees and the forest just inland. And since then, of course, many surfers have been drawn to Santa Cruz, most famously Jack O'Neill, who made Santa Cruz his home in 1959. And he was really the pioneer of development of the wetsuit, really helped put surfing on the world stage, and of course developed the world famous surfing brand O'Neill. So that really was, Santa Cruz was really the heart of Jack O'Neill's surfing journey. For the viewpoint of Steamer Lane, there's actually a cliff top lookout that you can walk to and catch the surfers. And of course, if you want to get involved, you can take yourself a surf lesson. But one of the other great things to do from Santa Cruz is whale watching, and the real advantage of this is that it's year round. So the most common whale that you can spot here is the humpback whale, and they would be seen from April through to November. But the rest of the year, from December through to April, you can observe the grey whales, and over 20,000 grey whales pass through the waters of Santa Cruz. And the whale watching trips are actually restarting in the next week. And of course, lots of the iconic things that I'm going to be talking about have been closed over the COVID-19 pandemic. But what's been really interesting putting this webinar together today is, having revisited all of their websites, Central Coast is really opening up, and over the next week or 2 weeks, all of the attractions will be back open for domestic tourists. Let's hope that the announcement on the 29th of June coming from the UK government is going to hopefully allow some international tourists soon as well. So whale watching, and from Santa Cruz, I would also recommend a trip into the Henry Cowell State Park, where you can see some of the oldest redwood forests in this region, before heading down to the boardwalk and taking a ride at the famous colourful boardwalk, and having a stroll around Capitola Village, where these colourful buildings pepper the landscape, and it's a really unique place to stop for an afternoon stroll. We've got two properties that are really widely brochured across the UK, the Dream Inn and the Hotel Paradox, which you'll find in lots of the programmes across the UK, and both are great spots for your first stop on this journey. So just heading a tiny bit inland, we're going to head over to visit Gilroy. One of the things I would recommend doing here is the Santa Clara Valley wineries. I've taken this map from the Visit Gilroy website, but there's 25 of some of the oldest wineries in this region. And of course, California is synonymous with wine. I'm sure we've all tasted Californian wines. This whole region is peppered with amazing winelands. So wherever you're stopping on the Central Coast, you'll have an opportunity to visit some cellar doors. But certainly Santa Clara would be my first recommendation for that. There's also some great cycling trails around this area. But what Gilroy is most known for, it's the self-proclaimed garlic capital of the world. And next month in July, they hold their annual garlic festival. So something a little bit different and unique for Gilroy. It also hosts it's also home to some premium outlets offering up to 65% off some of the brands in their outlet stores, and the Gilroy Gardens, which is a family-friendly theme park. So heading a little bit further south, we hit Monterey. And again, you're still only an hour and 45 minutes from San Fran Airport at this point. So really short driving distances to make Monterey your next port of call. The Old Fisherman's Wharf is probably the first place that you will visit when you come to Monterey, and is a great place to have a clam chowder, sitting around watching the bird life, marine life, and also the boats on the marina here as well. Now, Monterey Bay Aquarium is a really, really spectacular attraction, and I would say every single itinerary you're selling down this coast should include a visit to the Monterey Bay Aquarium. It's home to over 80,000 plants and animals, representing over 1,700 different species. They receive 1.8 million visitors annually, and for 35 years, the aquarium has really been the epicenter of sea otter recovery. It's been researching effective methods for caring for sick and orphaned wild otters and their pups. And they've been very successful in then releasing them back into the wild as well. So you can see the picture here. This is Rosa. She's one of the aquarium's most successful foster mums, and she's fostered over 15 seal pups that have then been able to be released back into the wild. So some incredible conservation work that happens here at the Monterey Bay Aquarium, and I've got some footage here of the open sea exhibit for you as well. So that's just a little snapshot of what you can expect inside the aquarium. The other thing I would definitely recommend is visiting their website. If, like me, you've been battling homeschooling over the last 3 months, there's some really incredible educational resources on there. There's a whole series of factual lessons for children, colouring pages, and all sorts of really interactive resources and videos. So I would really recommend heading over to their website. And this is bookable through all of the major channels, including ATI, Tourico, Hotel Beds, to name a few. So continuing around this area, hopefully you can see my cursor there on what they call the Monterey Peninsula, and the area between Pacific Grove and Pebble Beach is known as the 17-mile highway, 17-mile drive, a visually stunning stretch of the roadway taking in the Pacific coastline. Along the way, you'll get to see this golf links, one of the most famous golf links courses in the US, at Pebble Beach, where the waves actually come crashing pretty much onto the golf course, which is really spectacular. Also the lone cypress, which is probably one of the most photographed trees in the whole of the US, which is along this driving route. And then also I'd recommend a stop in Carmel by the Sea. This is a sort of picturesque, picture perfect, quaint town full of art galleries, boutiques, has a great white sand beach as well. Definitely recommend an afternoon exploring all of the courtyards and the shopping that you can do here. Also home to lots of summer festivals, including art, food, and classical music. And one of the things that is really fun to do here is the walk by the sea. So you've got access to 15 tasting rooms in the downtown area of Carmel by the Sea, all manageable within a 1 square mile radius, so very walkable. And added bonuses, if you buy some wine along the route, participating restaurants won't then charge you corkage for drinking it with your evening dinner as well. And just a little bit further down that highway one, we hit Big Sur. And in fact, the picture behind me and also the picture you see here is this absolutely amazing Bixby Bridge. It's 715 foot long, 206 foot high, and was finished in 1932. It's a really integral passage along Highway 1 here, and certainly one of the most photographed spots along this drive. Here you've got rocky cliffs, lush mountains, and just inland some redwood forests as well as hidden beaches. So it's a really charming and eclectic vibe here. I would also make sure you stop at the Big Sur River Inn, which is located right on the river, and they actually have tables and chairs on the river in the water so that you can dip your toes into the water while you're having your drinks there. So really an eclectic place to stop, and definitely somewhere to include on your itinerary. Lots of places to stay in this area. The inn at the Spanish Bay always catches my eye. It's a fabulous 5-star property, and there's a famous bagpiper who comes out onto that Pebble Beach golf course every day at 5:45. I haven't actually managed to find an explanation as to where this tradition or why this tradition started at Spanish Bay, but the footage of it, if you look at it online, is really spectacular. These sort of haunting bagpipes and the sun setting over the golf links. Also, the Pajaro Dunas Resort has got some really incredible beachfront houses, and I think there is going to be a real surge in people wanting to stay in apartments and self-catering, self-contained units as we come out of lockdown, and I think that will certainly prove to be a popular spot. So heading a bit further south, we're going to come into the San Luis Obispo region. So San Luis Obispo, or SLOCAL as the region is called, also has a town itself of San Luis Obispo, which, as I mentioned at the beginning, has been named as the happiest place in the US. So first stop as we enter this region of SLOCAL is San Simeon. And one of the most famous things to see here in San Simeon is Hearst Castle, a really unusual and quirky 165-room castle with terrace gardens and these towering palm trees that you see here. So this was actually designed by Julia Morgan, and she was California's first female architect. It became a private residence for the publishing magnate William Randolph Hearst, and it was completed in 1947. Now, Hearst himself was quite an eclectic and wealthy businessman, and he actually had a zoo in this area, which at the time had free-roaming exotic animals, including cougars, orangutans, storks, leopards, tigers. The zoo was actually dismantled in the 50s, but you can still spot zebras in this area and roaming the fields surrounding this castle to this very day. So something very unusual. I'm sure you probably weren't expecting to be seeing zebras at the roadside on a California itinerary. It's also got some really incredible beaches and very much sort of that wild and rugged, unspoiled, uninhabited areas, and some of the most beautiful in California. And the other thing that you must do in San Simeon is the elephant seal viewing. So the Piedras Blancas rookery is the only elephant seal rookery in the world, so easily accessible, completely free and open to the public every single day of the year. So no reservations necessary. It's right off Highway 1, and the elephant seals haul out onto the beaches here year round. Certain peak times include January, April and October, but you can see them year round. At those peak times, there's anything up to 17,000 elephant seals on the beach at any one time. So something really incredible to see on your journey, as well as perhaps taking a hike in this region. And the Piedras Blancas Lighthouse is one of the really popular hiking routes here too. We've got 2 properties that you can choose to stay in if you want to stay right in the centre of San Simeon, which includes Sands by the Sea and the Cavalier Oceanfront Resort. So next up is the Paso Robles in California. So we're now 2 hours south of Monterey, still only about 4 hours north from LA. So we're almost halfway now down the coastal route. And Paso Robles was named by the New York Times as one of the 52 places to go in 2020. It is a real hidden gem. Its name means the Pass of the Oaks, and it's known for its sunny days and its gentle rolling hillsides. And certainly it's also been described as where cowboy country meets world-class wine regions, and its Mediterranean climate makes it perfect for grapes, for grape growing, and is home to over 200 tasting rooms. But it's really become a centre for craft breweries, there's cider production, there's distilleries making gins, whiskies, vodkas. The Mediterranean climate means that they're also growing olive groves here, so there's olive oil production as well. A must-see is the TINCITY. I really love the sound of this, an evolving industrial makers market nestled in the Oaks where friends and adventurers can come together. It's on an industrial estate, but it's home to a whole collection of local artisan producers, and they have live music events as well as tastings, so definitely something really unique to visit. But of course, the other reason why this may have been put on your radar at Paso Robles is the Field of Light at Sensorio. This is Bruce Monroe's largest artwork to date and is comprised of over 58,000 fibre optic spheres, all powered by solar panels. I'm going to play you a little video now to bring this to life. So I'm sure you'll agree that's something really unusual and unique, and has also been extended now until January 2021. So there's plenty of time for people to still catch that before the exhibition finishes. And of course, there's a collection of properties here, including Best Western and the Courtyard by Marriott, as well as the Hotel Cheval, a luxury boutique right in the heart of the downtown area. So moving then into the city of San Luis Obispo, and as I mentioned, the happiest place in America. It's a college town, but also very, very close to the coast, so with great access to all of the beaches along this area. In doing some research for this, I actually found a Guardian article that I think summed this up really well. It was the journalist had taken the train from Los Angeles up to this region, and she said, "As we draw close, the landscape is mesmeric, golden hills, vineyards, citrus groves and craggy peaks. The leisurely speed of the train, which teeters along the precipitous Californian coastline before arcing inland towards San Luis, feels fitting to the relaxed pace of life in Slow, a town with a laid-back attitude." So I think that really sums up the kind of experience you can have here. It's charming, it's got some really fabulous beaches, rolling hillside, and probably one of the most famous markets along this coast town. So every Thursday, the entire town is taken over by the farmers market. And as you can see here, hundreds of people flock to enjoy that every week. So our final few stops before you would get to Los Angeles on this journey, take in Ventura, so 2 hours south of San Luis Obispo. And Ventura itself is a small and friendly beachside town with a range of activities. Popular water-based activities include stand-up paddleboarding, kayaking, whale watching, also watching the surfers at Surfers Point, or just simply heading to the beach to admire some of the best sunsets from the fabulous beachfront here. It's also a great nightlife spot, and there's live music and a great range of happy hours and food experiences here as well. This is the Harbour Village, which is a great spot for some local freshly caught seafood and some popular art galleries here as well. But Ventura is also the gateway out to the Channel Islands National Park. And if you haven't come across this national park, I really would urge you to investigate it more and start recommending it as a must-see. It's described as North America's Galapagos and really is a hidden gem along this coastline. There's one operator who has island packers who have a monopoly on the actual boat trips out to the islands, but it's very accessible, and the first island is only an hour off the coast. It's really a sort of adventurer's dream. There's hiking, kayaking, diving. People can go camping on these islands as well. And it's home to over 2,000 plant species, as well as an endemic species, the island fox, which is about the size of a house cat. So I've got a short video to show you now as well about the Channel Islands National Park. So I'm sure you agree, it looks like really, really spectacular. Hopefully you saw the little fox in that video as well. But the Channel Islands are also home to some of the oldest known human remains in North America, and archaeologists have actually discovered that the woolly mammoth thrived on these islands until the end of the last ice age, almost 11,000 years ago. They've also discovered historic settlements of up to 148 or so settlements across these islands. So it's steeped in history, nature and wildlife, and I would very much recommend in exploring this region. And back in Ventura town, we've got the 4 Points by Sheraton and also the Marriott Ventura Beach. So final stop is Oxnard, and this is the kind of epitome of a Californian cool vibe happening here in Oxnard. Cultural, vibrant town with this spectacular white sand beaches, and quite a contrast now you're at the southern part of this coast journey versus the backdrop behind me and the more dramatic coastline that we saw around Big Sur. One of the famous things here, oh, hang on 1 second, we're going to show you a short video first. So what I was going to say was one of the most famous things here is the tacos. There's an amazing Mexican food scene here. They're the self-declared taco capital of the US, with dozens of taquerias, taco trucks and Mexican restaurants. And in fact, Visit Oxnard themselves have produced a map to help you navigate the amazing Mexican food that you can find here. It's also home to two really fabulous automotive museums, the most impressive of which we've got a short video of here. So the collection there features more than 50 vintage automobiles and lots of Americana spanning from 1903 to the present day. And then finally, just 2 of the stops for Oxnard before you'd be heading down into Los Angeles, the Courtyard Oxnard and also the Embassy Suites. So that concludes our whistle-stop tour of the Central Coast and the drive down the coastal route. So I'm going to stop sharing the presentation now, and I'm going to invite our panelist Keith Marsh to join the panel discussion now. Keith, are you there?
Yeah. And
Hi, Keith.
I'm apologising for my lockdown tan and haircut.
Well, you're looking very stylish there, Mr. Motorhome, so I absolutely love the hairdo. But thank you so much for joining as well. And for those of you that don't know Keith, he works at THL and is certainly a motorhome, or RV as we should call them for California, expert. So Keith, I guess first up, can you just tell us a little bit about the motorhomes that you have available for rent down this coastal route?
It's all RVs in America. And we've got Road Bear, which is our high-end stuff. The whole fleet with Road Bears, well, we guarantee under 2 years old, but actually, I don't think we've got anything older than 6 months right now. And then we've got El Monte, which is 60% of the fleet of El Monte is under a year old. The rest is still under 2. So it's all very new stuff. And obviously, typical with American, it's massive. The smallest vehicles we've got are bigger than anything we've got in Australia and New Zealand, and the biggest are practically buses. But don't be scared. They're very easy to drive. Everything's automatic. The roads are huge in America, and driving in an RV is very much, well, it's very popular in America. So the campsites have got plenty of space. The roads are big. It's just, it just works very well. I did like the way you went from San Francisco down to LA. Personally, I prefer that. I think it was Kathleen made a note as well.
Why do you prefer that route versus the other way?
Yeah, you're already on the right-hand side of the road. So when you want to pull over by the beach, you're already there, which it sounds minor, but it is quite helpful. Though actually probably my first top tip would be to look at flights and rental prices in each direction, because you will find it's a lot cheaper to go north than south. But
And you allow one-way rentals, so there's no issue with having to drop the vehicle back?
No, it's one-ways are fine. Yeah, in fact, you don't get many people do. Well, some people do a loop. They'll go in down the coast and then up inland. But yeah, one-way is totally fine.
Yeah. And in terms of the provision of the sort of campgrounds or free camping, can you tell us a bit about your experience of that?
Well, as I think your presentation showed, well, first of all, tell people to take more time, because that was a whistle-stop tour, wasn't it? And there was so much stuff to see and do. And there is something down that coast for everyone, whether you like sort of native bushland and inland and mountains, or whether you like beaches or wildlife, it doesn't matter. It's all there. There's some fantastic festivals, which again plays into the motorhome RV area, because if you arrive somewhere and you like it, you stay. If there's a festival coming on, you stick around. The campgrounds vary from all singing, all dancing with swimming pools and plug in this and plug in that, and you can even get cable TV plugged into your van if you want, to pretty remote stuff that's just super cheap. But don't worry, nearly all of them you can drive through. You don't have to reverse your camper van. Everything's drive through in America. Oh, you're muted, Jill. You're muted.
Oh, am I back?
You're back.
I'm back. I seem to be having, actually, I've just seen on the comments, I think I've had a few problems with my speaker, so apologies if at any point the sound has cut out. I hadn't realised there'd been a speaker issue. But I was just saying, Keith, can you tell us a little bit about the typical market that you have travelling to California and taking a
right now, who knows?
Yeah. Well, the typical old market of 2019, should I say?
Yeah, last year. At the moment, it's very much domestic, obviously. Though, you know, some of your numbers that in your presentation, I think the bonus of, as soon as it does open up, it's going to be very quiet relative to what was going down the coast. I mean, some of those museums and the turnover of customers, I think now is going to be, as soon as it does open up, will be the perfect time, because you'll be able to travel around America with quiet roads. All the tourist areas will be relatively quiet. But no, we get all sorts. I mean, families, obviously, we've got vehicles that take up to 7. So I'd say families is probably number 1. Quite a lot of retirees, older clientele, but anywhere from, well, you can rent a vehicle anywhere from 21 years old, and there's no upper limit. So we get all sorts.
Yeah. And there's been a little bit of talk about, you know, perhaps camper vans, motorhomes are going to be the way to travel if people are trying to socially distance, or perhaps worried about hotel check-ins, bars, restaurants, that kind of thing. You can self-isolate a little bit more in a motorhome. Have you seen any kind of spike in interest? And do you think there's a correlation to that?
Yes, very much so. At the moment, like I say, the domestic market is pretty big for USA. Even selling them, people are buying them, people are traveling in them, because you can self-isolate as much as you choose to. It's your, you're in your comfort zone. You can obviously mix with the locals, you can spend time with locals, but if you choose to, you can just go off into national parks, you can head to more remote beaches. You can obviously self-cater, which saves you money, but also keeps other people away. I mean, no one goes to California to not meet anyone. That's not the point. You know, you don't want to completely self-isolate, but it's your choice as to how much you integrate. And I think the freedom and the whole safety aspect is going to boom as soon as we're allowed to go there.
Yeah. Great. And then finally, Keith, what's your favourite spot along this coastline?
That's a tough one. Oh, do you know what? I loved Carmel. Is Clint Eastwood still the mayor of Carmel?
Oh gosh, I don't know. You put me on the spot now.
I love the whole coast. I mean, I lived in Venice Beach for a bit. I lived in Mammoth Lakes inland for about a year as well, but the coast is just staggering. It's the festivals, actually. I couldn't pick a spot, but it's like you had the garlic one, the chili festival along there somewhere else. There's just loads of festivals for utter silliness, all the way up to like Pebble Beach classic car things where you have to be a millionaire to even think about going. There's just so much going on. I love the whole coast. I want to go now.
Well, let's hope there's a lot of pent-up demand. Certainly, I think people are going to be raring to go and to get things booked as soon as we are able to. Now we've got some questions. Oh, sorry, Keith.
Yeah, first place I'm going is to hairdressers, to be quite honest.
Yes, absolutely. So the questions are coming in, and Louise has asked, how long would you recommend clients to take this type of road trip? So just to give the kind of the overall numbers or average length of stay for British travellers going to California is 10 nights. I mean, personally, I think you could take longer over that, but the average length of stay of British people coming to this region is 10 nights. Keith, what would you recommend in terms of an RV experience?
Again, that's part of the beauty of them. It's each to their own. You can do what you like. I mean, as I say, I think your presentation showed most people tend to budget. As you say, it'll be 10 nights. They'll do a few nights in LA, a few nights in San Francisco at either end, which then cuts them down to like 5 nights, which is just too fast. Personally, I could kill weeks going down that coast, but I would recommend, hopefully people are on a 2-week trip, couple of nights in San Fran, couple of nights in LA, 10 days of travel.
Yeah. And Louise has also asked, roughly what would it cost to rent a week of a standard motorhome with insurance and license? Is there any advice on that? Are you able to give us an approximate figure?
No, right now, no.
Should we get back to Louise on that? I can include that. I can ask Keith perhaps to actually cost one up for us, and we can include that in the roundup that we'll send.
Yes, do you know what we'll do that? I'll do. Obviously, school holidays have a big effect.
Yeah.
August is going to be high. And actually, another key thing about August is avoiding Burning Man Festival, which obviously isn't in that area, but camper van rentals out of San Francisco spike for Burning Man. So you need to avoid when that festival is on. And as I said before, check for northbound or southbound. It might be quite a considerable difference in price, depending on our demand.
And I know, Keith, you've also said in a previous chat that we had that your European customers book a lot further in advance than the UK tend to. So actually booking early and having your pick of the motorhomes is really important as well.
Yes, the Swiss and the Germans tend to be more organised than the British for booking in advance. If I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say that, but so yeah, try and get your customers to get prepared early, because the later they leave it, the price goes up and availability goes down. Someone also asked there, I saw a question about toilets and showers. Yes, they all have toilets and showers. In fact, separate toilet and shower in all vans. They've all got a American style fridge, which we would call a walk-in wardrobe. They're just huge. Massive TVs, I've got everything. In fact, the bigger camper vans have got slide out sections, because big is not big enough. I would thoroughly recommend, actually, I did a bit of a States trip, and I don't know if anyone's watched Man vs. Food. Terrible program, but it does recommend some amazing restaurants. You don't have to eat a burger the size of your head or chicken wings covered in lava. There's just some great, interesting little places to eat on there. Yeah.
And Kathleen's just added, hasn't Burning Man been cancelled for 2020? Which I'm imagining it has. Again,
definitely. Yeah. Good point, Kathleen. Yeah. There will definitely not be Burning Man this year.
Yeah. Some of the other classic questions I always get asked is, how long does it take to drive this? So you're talking about a stretch San Fran to LA of 400 miles. So if you were driving it straight on one of the inland routes, it's going to be about a 6-hour drive. Obviously, taking your time and stopping along the way is going to take longer, but we're talking about really short driving distances between all of these stops. You're not going to have to be in your vehicle for more than an hour to an hour and a half between any of the stops we've looked at along this route. And obviously the year-round climate as well. Peak time for traveling is, of course, our summer holiday, and they have similar summer and winter, but they're talking about lows of kind of somewhere between 8 degrees and 20 degrees in the southern part of this California region in December. So not winter as we know it here at home, and certainly somewhere you can recommend year-round and potentially get some better deals in the shoulder seasons. So I think that concludes the formal part. If anybody else has any questions, please do add them into either the chat or the Q&A, which we've still got open. And I think if there are no other questions, as follow-up, I'm going to send everybody a recap of all the destinations that we visited on this Whistle Stop tour, links to all of the links to the websites of all of the tourism boards that contribute into the Central Coast Tourism Council. We'll be including links to Monterey Aquarium, which I really do urge you to check out. And that concludes our webinar. Thank you very much for joining. Everybody will be eligible for a free rough guide as well. And I'll be sending you a link to download your complimentary electronic rough guide to California at the end of the presentation. So thank you very much for joining. Thank you very much, Keith, for coming and taking part in this panel discussion at the end. And thank you everyone for joining. Great. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you. Bye now.